Welcome, everybody. We're back in episode number 4 in Give Me 10 Relevant Conversations with Leaders, short, practical, to the point, and helpful. We welcome Dr. Myron Edmunds. Welcome, Myron.
Man, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. We want to talk about, converse about moving and transitioning a church from one location to another. Right, you were pastoring a large, significant congregation. Why move? Why make the decision? It seemed that you had a church there that had been there for a while, and you had enough members. Well, why move?
Well, the short answer, why move? Really, it was God's providence. We didn't really want to move, but doors began to close. We prayed our way through it, and in the end, it was basically a mission move. So we moved for mission. That's essentially the short answer to the question.
Okay, I imagine everybody, when you were working through this, I imagine it was universally embraced.
Yeah, universally by me.
and people just got on board and said, "Pastor, lead us."
That's right.
You have heard from God.
Yes.
Take us to the promised land.
Take us.
So what's the craziest or strangest to you, at least at that moment, argument not to move?
Oh man, I think the one that was the most mind-blowing is well, it's really not mind-blowing, but it was more or less along the lines of, I was baptized in this church. My mother was married into this church. It was a lot of history. That was really, honestly, that's the only thing that would come up, was just history, but nothing about the future, nothing about the present. It was all history.
So when you were dealing with opposition, right? What percentage of the church was not really on board in the beginning and was not really feeling the move?
Wow, I would say the majority of people were feeling the move. It's just that we had a small group of influential leaders who were not feeling the move. I'd even go so far as to say there was one influential leader that held sway over a small group of people. But you know how that is in the church. A lot of times there's a silent majority, and then there's the people who have the influence. And so that was the case in my situation.
And how long does this transition take? What's the time frame? 6 months, a year? How long did you work through this transition from one building to where you were going to eventually meet?
So there's layers to this, right? So you have the actual decision, right? So when the first time we voted this, we started the process in around 2013. I think we voted it in around 2014. We ended up buying a new facility somewhere around the same year. And now we actually started construction. Construction actually started in 2020, the end of 2020.
So when you say this move was made because of mission, what does that, break that down for me? What's the mission that you're hoping to accomplish? What's the difference? What advantages do you have in the new location? What are you able to do there you weren't able to do at the historic church that you were pastoring?
Absolutely. And before I answer that question, I do want to say this. It's funny. I never got any opposition from people that wanted to stay in that building. None of them said, we want to stay because we want to reach this community. That never came up. It was always history. So
Interesting.
Yeah. So as we're moving in this new direction, the idea was always, we wanted a facility that would allow us to do more than worship, right? So our mission statement is to help as many people as possible experience God's grace before Christ returns. And our vision statement is to bring transformation to 10,000 families by year 2025. And so we sort of envisioned our church doing more day-to-day, 7-day-a-week ministry, and de-emphasizing sort of worship as a centerpiece of our ministry. And so we needed a facility to do that. So we bought a former Kmart building that allowed us to have the space and the flexibility to be able to put mental health facilities in there, to put businesses in there, to put recreational facilities in there, workout facilities in there, co-working spaces in there. We really wanted the building to be a well, right? A place where the community felt like it was their spot and not really ours.
And it's interesting because when we're making moves like this, there has to be a point where you're self-conscious, right? When doubts creep in, when you're thinking, did I really hear from God? Was this really his idea? Because you're starting to get opposition, and that's never fun, right? We usually, people that say, I don't care about what people say, are the ones that care the most. So how did you deal with the opposition? Did doubts creep in? How did you process those? Let's dive a little deeper in that area.
Oh, absolutely. Doubts crept in because of the weight. Doubts crept in because of the weight. Doubts crept in because of the weight. I would say it was the weight, right? The process, the spiritual part of this. And I think a lot of people who are transitioning churches, who want to make moves, it's not all technical. It's not all process. It's not all strategic. It's very much spiritual, because in my mind, I felt like what God was really doing, he wasn't just transporting the church, just moving us from one place to the other. He was trying to transform the church. And so that's really what this has been about. God has used this project to disciple our congregation into being the people that he wants us to be, so that when we make disciples, we'll make the right ones, right? We'll make ones that actually resemble Jesus, that live and walk by faith. So, I mean, in short, I really felt like, the ministry motive behind this thing is kind of what from the spiritual perspective, it's kind of what drove the transformation in us to make these moves. Now,
I have a couple more questions before we're done with our 10 minutes. And then I have one crazy question at the end that has nothing to do with this.
Okay.
That you need to answer for me, because inquiring minds want to know. But what would be a couple of key leadership lessons that you learned through the process?
Number one, don't take yourself too seriously. And don't take your vision too seriously. I think some leaders often are very thin-skinned, and so they can't handle the struggle and the process of transitioning a church. And everybody that disagrees with you is not against you personally. And so a lot of times I had to work through that, right? And just realize that sometimes people are scared. They're not used to change. It's a lot. Moving or transitioning. People, if you move from one house to the other, there's loss. So this was a grief process, and I didn't realize that initially. The other thing I want to say is, I think we need to change how we go about casting vision. I think we need to function from a shared vision perspective first. I think a lot of pastors like me, we read a lot of books, and those books told us you cast a vision to the church, the people are inspired, the heavens open, and then they will follow you. It doesn't work like that, especially nowadays, not with boomers, millennials, or Gen Xers, and it probably doesn't work like that with Zers anyway. People like to be collaborative in the vision process. And so we did that on the latter end, but let me tell you this, once we did sort of a strategic visionary process. I want to give a quick shout out to Seth Yalorda. He walked our church through this process over a weekend. Man, there was synergy. Everybody was in. And now, man, we are literally moving. All the arrows are moving in the right direction. I wish I had done that sooner. I just really didn't know about it. I would encourage people to have a shared vision process where everybody agrees. It doesn't seem like it's just the pastors. It's the church's vision. They own it. You lead it.
Now, you said that the heavens don't open up. Usually, what opens up is the floors, because they want to see you go down there. Now, one last question that I have is this: you're an outlier in this sense that most Adventist pastors 3 to 5 years in their district, right? How long have you been in this church?
This is year 11.
Okay, so can you tell me one benefit or lesson that you learned about long-term ministry, and why was that beneficial to a local congregation?
Yeah, I just don't really think that you can I don't think you can really impact the community if you're only there for a short while. Now I literally I'm entrenched in the community. And so 2 things have happened. I have earned the influence of the community, and I've earned the influence of the church. You really don't start pastoring a church unless you've been there for 5 years. And then once they give you permission, not just to be the positional leader, but the leader of influence, you then can start actually leading them where you want to take them. And so I don't even know how people pastor churches in such a short amount of time and get so much done. I just think this is the way, especially if you're transitioning a church.
Yeah, people that say, yeah, we're going to wait him out. So Myron's not going anywhere. He's going to be here for a little while. So at the end of the program, we always ask a totally unrelated question to anything we've been talking about. And I have been grieved in my spirit watching you online give love to the Browns, and you used to be a Dallas Cowboy. So I'm just want to know what's up with that. I want to know what's up with that. Do we need an intervention? Do we need to cast out some demons? What is going on?
You know, I'm just asleep. I was just asleep. I've just been asleep. That's it. I've just been asleep for a little while. I just need to see Dak Prescott come back, and then I'll be ready to go. I thought this was going to be our year. I really thought this was going to be our year. And so my wife is from Cleveland. I want to stay married. She's from Cleveland, Ohio. They have never won anything. I'm not a fan. I'm just a sympathizer.
All right, good. Well, thank you, Myron, for your contribution. We really appreciate your ministry. We admire, and we're going to share this with pastors near and far. Thank you for being a guest today, and give me 10.